All right, I'd like to call into order the East Long Meadow Housing Authority's board agenda for December 9th, 2019. It is 4:32 p.m. And we have Marilyn Gandini, who is absent today. So first on the agenda is the minutes of November 2019. If everyone's read it, I'll entertain a motion to accept.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Any further discussions? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes got it, 4-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is our budget. We have Gary DePace, our fee accountant.
Hello, everyone. Anyways, you've got the budget that I prepared with Lynn. I want to cover a couple of categories. If you could flip to page 3, which for you would probably, because you have front and back, would probably be the very first flip. This is the calculation of our budgeted subsidy for the upcoming year. Things that I want to point out of what we've gotten from the state this year. You'll see on line number 2 is the previous year's ANUEL. That's the annual non-utility expense level set by the state, which last year was $627,927. DHCD allowed for a 10% increase to that this year, which is quite substantial, and that comes from the legislature approving additional funds for state subsidies. And it's a way of getting funds to the housing authorities. So the new ANUEL, our base is $690,720. The next thing we have is we have DHCD approved operating cost exemptions, which is for health insurance for our retirees that we pay. Now that $24,172, that's an amount that was funded at the 4 years ago level. I think I explained it last year when I told you that they're approving it, but they're not giving us any increases to it. We've had to absorb, even though we are spending more than that amount for our retirees' health insurance, that's the amount that they're allowing as an exemption.
Okay.
They basically have frozen it, so any other increases, we've had to absorb that within the increases in the ANUEL. The other thing at line number 8, you're going to see that there's 2 additional DHCD approved exemptions this year, which is a technology grant. If you remember, 2 years ago we did get $10,000 to upgrade our technology. They're giving all housing authorities an additional $5,000 this year. And they're also giving an award called Health and Safety for $200 per unit. For the East Long Meadow, that represents $38,800. Now, I will tell you at this point, Lynn is working with maintenance and identifying what we're going to be spending on that. It has to be health and safety. And before this budget gets submitted, DHCD is requesting that we give them an itemized kind of idea of what they were. Now, they're not going to hold us to it. If we said we're going to spend $3,000 on sidewalks, that's it. They're basically looking for the general amounts of monies by items that would be health and safety. And believe me, there's a broad range of things that are health and safety. And I know one of the things that Lynn talked about was the expansion of our security systems, possibly as part of it too. So anyways, that's something to deal with and talk with Lynn when she does have that finalized, but that is $38,800. So from that, with the calculation, you'll see that our budgeted subsidy from the state next year is at $181,347. Okay, that number, if you flip back to page 1 of the budget, you'll see that that's up on the subsidy request, line number 9. Okay. Flip on to the next page, which is the budget of proposed salaries for the upcoming year. And let me explain what's happened.
On page 4.
Yep, it says page 4 of 10. It'll probably be the back of that one, right there.
There we go.
Yep.
Thank you.
Got it, Vinnie?
Yeah, I
Yep,
got
yep,
it.
he's good. Now, DHCD allowed this year, and I think you've already voted
Mm-hmm.
on the executive director's portion of that. That budget number is from that calculation that you've already voted on. The administrative assistant and the bookkeeper, those are amounts, they do include a small cost of living increases for those positions, but those are new positions in there. And so Lynn, basically, that's why if you look, you'll see like the administrative assistant actually went down in terms of what it was the previous year, and that's because that was a changeover of positions. Lynn was promoted into Barbara after Barbara retired, so Lynn's working with the amounts that we have. Now what that did was DHCD looks at the bottom line of the 4110 account and basically holds that to 3% greater than the year before. And that's what I've done, is I've budgeted the total, but what that's done is it's allowed me to put more money into the clerk as needed. You see, we have that position. It's a position that that Lynn might use during recertification, of getting another person on there. And so that's why that went from the year before from 13.5 up to the new amount, because that flexibility is in there. Same thing with maintenance. I want to explain a little bit about what we did with that. Is as maintenance we've had turnovers and changes, with that 10% increase, it's allowed us to put additional hours and resources into maintenance labor. And one of the things that Lynn was taking into consideration this year is the use of obviously labor and industry rates are set by the state for what we pay, but they allow for a payment to a person that you might consider as a supervisor. So what Lynn has said, let's pay $2 an hour more to Ed to be the supervisor, to actually supervise these other employees. So that's why that amount is in there. So it's the labor and industry plus $2, and then we have our full-time groundkeeper custodian, and then our part-timer 20 hours, and then also what's new this year is a 15-hour position that we have in there for someone to utilize. And I think Lynn actually found someone that we've hired for that position. So hopefully that's going to work out and alleviate some of the backlog that we have of the apartments that become vacant and as they go. And it certainly, with the increase that DHCD gave us, allowed us to fund that. Any questions on the salary pages while we're on that?
What if we don't use this money here, where's it go into?
It goes into operating reserve.
Operating reserves?
Okay, that's the part of when I say the total ANUEL, the annual non-utility expense level is this. If we underspend the ANUEL, monies go into reserves.
Okay.
If we
don't lose it or
overspend,
anything.
if we
Okay, good.
overspend the ANUEL, it comes out of reserves.
Gotcha.
And when we get to the reserve levels, and that's where I'll show you the categories of where we fit on that,
Okay.
okay? Any specific questions on salaries? Then?
No.
If not, let's flip to the next page, which will spell out the next level of our fixed costs that we have within our budget. The top one being our schedule of insurances. We have basically 3 insurances. We have our workers' comp, which we have through the Massachusetts NARO Workers' Comp Trust, estimated to be of $10,750 for the upcoming year. And that's an amount that as salaries go up, we pay more. If salaries go down, we pay less. But one of the things is the rate that we pay is very beneficial and has been very good. The second is our property insurance, and that's the insurance that is bid at the state level for all state housing units across the state. This year's provider is the Hayes Group, and actually it has an increase of about 19% over last year. We did get a public housing notice on that. Basically, it came down that when they bid it, that still was a good rate. I mean, we're paying approximately 23,600 for all our units. It's a cost of $126 per unit. We were down at, I think, 103 last year, and primarily as in any insurances, the reasoning, and it was issued out in the public housing notice from DHCD, is from all the disasters across the country. It's, that's how they do it.
Yep.
Somebody's gotta pay for it.
Someone has to pay for it. So then we get to our only other insurance, which is our automobile and truck insurance. And again, that's a small amount, roughly $2,900, that covers that. The health insurance or benefits portion, we have the retirement fund. This is the amount that we pay into Hampden County Retirement, our appropriation. That $70,500 amount is fairly accurate. There's a very small estimate because we already know what the first 2 quarters are. We don't know what the second 2 quarters are, which we get billed later on that. We get billed somewhere in May, I think. The next thing is our unemployment. We pay in our unemployment the lowest rate, which is 0.1%. That's $300. The next one is group insurance. Now that's the health insurance for our employees and retirees. We pay approximately $20,000 a quarter. That's why I budgeted $80,000. The Medicare tax, that's what we pay through the U.S. Treasury, and then we have a program for our dental and vision that we have cover for our employees. Total benefited cost of $161,950. Any questions on those items? Those are big ticket items. The bottom portion on that form shows you how I estimate utilities. Now, and again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on utilities because we do have some solar. We still, we have solar credits and we have this. But when it comes to utilities, you've heard me talk about budgeting of utilities is a number. I estimate it. That's why we have an estimate of our subsidy. But when we actually go and file our year-end report, we don't use budgeted utilities, we use actual utilities.
Okay.
So if our utilities actually cost us more than we budget, we get it through our state subsidy, and if the utilities are less than what we budget, it goes back to the state in terms of an unused or unneeded subsidy. But anyways, those are the expenses based upon probably the most recent actual costs that we've had. Okay, the next page. These are items that usually come out of reserves, or in this case, also coming from the specified grants that we talked about. The first one under extraordinary maintenance, you'll see that I've budgeted emergencies as needed for $15,000. That's just what it's for. It's for something that might come up over the year that's an emergency that we need immediate funding for. It's going to be in that budget line item. The second is the health and safety items. That's the $38,800, which is the item that we're getting the actual grant from. That's the one where DHCD wants to know more specifics before they'll approve the budget. And before we actually submit this budget, it'll go in with a plan. On the right-hand side, you're going to see the other thing, which is that we're going to replace the 2008 plow truck. We replaced the other truck, I think last year, maybe the year before. This is the 2008, so it's 11 years old. It's doesn't have a lot of miles, but it is getting to that point where we probably should replace it.
They always had one here though before.
Wait,
Am I right or wrong? As long as I've been here, before they replaced the truck, they always had one. So when they replaced
Years
the
ago,
other
we-
one, they decided to keep the second one.
yeah, but years ago we used to have two. We used to always have two years ago. When funds got very, very tight, we went down to one truck.
Does
But
one
if we
truck
went
do all the
back, if we
properties?
went back quite a ways, we did used to have two trucks.
Yeah, well, I know. I'm just
Sure.
saying
I know.
what happened, okay? Because There was no sense of trading it in because they weren't gonna give us enough money, and they
Right.
still kept that one. So you actually could keep the third truck if you wanna get a new truck too.
It depends on.
Instead
if there's
of
any-
using.
Lynn said the last time we went for inspection, we were having trouble with it.
Yeah, well, it's okay, but I
Yeah.
you know, I mean, inspection, it's what is it, you know. But I'm just saying, you know,
Yeah,
it's not up to me anyway, so.
Okay, it would be the same thing. Lynn would go through the.
oh, we'd have to bid on that.
Bid.
Yeah, we have, that's all have to be bid or, get it off the, if there's a
The state
statewide
con- the statewide
contract
contract.
or whatever. I mean, this is adding it into the line item.
Right.
I mean, and once we get it, you'll know.
Too bad she can't use Connecticut. I had a great deal for Connecticut. It's about 2 trucks for $33,000 a piece with the plows.
With the plows?
With the
Wow,
plows.
that's really
Are they
good.
Ford trucks or?
4 350s.
Wow, that's
Is
amazing
that, the
price.
new one, is that a diesel that they bought here, or no?
I don't think so. I don't know if they got a diesel. I think they,
The one, the old one is a diesel.
okay, maybe they'll replace that.
That I don't know.
And actually, of the tech grant that Lynn is thinking about, she's looking at her copier, which is getting, I don't know, that's also, we didn't realize how old that was getting. So she may be using that 5,000 to replace the copier.
Where would the monies go that would have been put aside to do some of the repairs or redoing the lot? You know, we were talking about that.
What
How
a,
the town portion is one portion and then our portion would be,
what a parking lot that we've been working with. Vinny's been working
Right,
and
right, right,
everything that I've been in touch with state legislators. That's because that's not ours. That's part
That's
of
the
this.
town's.
That's part of the town. So
right, so I
so-
think she was gonna work with the DPW and
Well-
we had some money set aside. Is that in here somewhere? And
No, that's.
No, not for that.
No.
Because,
Not for that.
No, because that's my argument that I was saying. That's
We shouldn't
that-
have to use our
we
capital
shouldn't
money
be
for
using
that.
that. That's the
That's the
town's
town.
responsibility, in which they
But
get Chapter 90
this was
money.
the 4th year, next year will be 4 years, and I was working on that road there, the one you came
Yep,
up on
yep.
there. Even before I got on the board,
No,
okay?
I know it.
So
That's-
they kept
they did
stalling
the
me.
road, we own
So the
the
town
parking
manager,
spaces.
she's no longer.
Parking, no, the park.
She
well, the
says to
parking
me,
lots
"You-
are
I have to
partly
prove to
ours,
her."
but the
I don't,
street,
you know, I don't know
Right, right
anything
up the
about
middle.
East Long Meadow.
all the
I
way
have
up
But
to
the
to
prove
parking
to
lots
her
are expensive.
they're
Right,
responsible
parking
for
lot
the
we
road.
are.
She
So
told
I said-
them that she already had the money
I went to the
aside for
library, I
that.
says, "Can you check, you know,
I just-
Yep,
back?"
Where is it?
yep.
Then I went to the town clerk and he throws it back at me. She said, Lynn Bush should have, who's responsible for that road. And she told me she doesn't know where the thing is.
Yeah.
Okay?
I know she told me it went back and forth.
Yeah,
but
no.
Yeah,
legally,
when
I think
she gave it
legally
to
they
the
find-
lawyer. I'd just like to know what she paid the lawyer to find nothing out. Anyway, what's his name there? Lawrence, which is no longer a town clerk. Who's the town clerk now? I don't even know. But anyway, finally, 2 months after I put the request in, he sends me the note, says East Long Meadow took the road back by eminent domain, and they're definitely responsible to pave the road.
Yep.
And then I took that note to Menard, and then a couple of months
She's
after,
gone.
she quit, okay? Because she said to me, she said, Mr. Mandolini, if you can prove to me that we're responsible, I'll make sure they take care of it. And that's how I was taking care of it. That was supposed to be last year now, okay? Now, this year, the highway department was supposed to have paved something this summer. Then they said for the winter. No, for falls, and then finally the head of the city council there, she calls me back. She says, "I'm gonna try to do something about the road because I physically went and see the road, and you're absolutely right." But she didn't say she was gonna do the whole thing.
No,
They
the-
only
the
told me they're
responsibility
gonna, yeah,
become-
right,
Come all the way up to where where the parking lots start.
yeah.
Because the roads they own, but the parking lots is the housing authorities.
Yeah.
So I know Lynn's working on whenever that
Right.
project will
Because I think
get,
everybody should be on the same page at the same time,
Yeah.
something like that.
and, hey,
That road is
we'll have a
awful. I
big
just drove up there
celebration when we're
myself.
Yeah,
when
well, I
they pave
mean,
the pavement.
I did everything I could, and then I got shut down. I said, the next thing I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna call Channel 40 And I wanna see how cheap East Long Meadow is, okay? I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's ridiculous. And I'm surprised the fire chief hasn't said anything, and the chief of police hasn't said anything about that road, because if they can't get that fire truck up here, which comes up here every day, or an ambulance, which that comes in quite often, and a policeman, then what?
Yep.
And that's a serious thing, but like I said, I'm only a little nail on the board there. Actually, I'm a little pin on the board.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. Who says things works fast in government, right?
It does. It's very simple. She could have asked the town clerk herself, okay? The highway department could have asked the town clerk, and everybody else could have asked the town clerk, but nobody else did. As a matter of fact, she gave it to the lawyer, she told me. I don't know, you know. What I'm trying to say is, I want to know how much she paid that lawyer to find something out, because he didn't find anything out.
I don't know if we paid anything. You'd have to look at, you approve bills.
I don't, yeah, I mean, I can't, you know, but she said I give it to the lawyer. And that was the end of that.
Okay, so the next page, we talk about operating reserve. And everybody on that page, this would be page 7 of 10, it says. Shows a maximum operating reserve, minimum operating reserve, and where our reserve is estimated to be at the end of this fiscal year. The number right in the middle is what we're estimating our reserve to be at 12/31/19. That's the end of this month. 369,475. Now what that includes, that would mean that we spent every dollar of the ANUEL this year. The way I'm looking at our financials at this point, we probably will be spending less than that. So which means our reserves will not be below that, and if anything, when I close the books, will be above that. Now that's something that you should look at when I give you the final year-end reports, which will be sometime in February. You'll be kind of monitoring, and you'll be saying, okay, where did our reserve end up? How did it compare to our budget? That's the number to look for. So with everything that's in this budget that we just went over, with the truck and everything purchased, we're estimated our next year's income was to be a negative $19,169. Now again, that represents us spending $45,000 for a truck, so that's why negative numbers aren't bad. It just means that we're spending our resources. Our reserve level would be at 63% at the end of next year. A good number is we don't want to really be over 70%, and we don't want to be below 30% or 35%. 35% is DHCD's new minimum that they want. So you can see that the overall finances is a good figure to be at. Now the reason I say 70%, and sometimes we say, oh, why shouldn't our reserve be greater than that? Well, there's nothing wrong with it to be greater than that. It just means that DHCD is looking longer at or closer at certain grants or awards. And if there are funds that could be used, possibly for the parking lot or ADA approvals or anything else, if something comes up and they see us over 70, they're gonna say, oh, use your reserve first before they give out the additional resources. So I think that level of 63% is a good level to be at for the Housing Authority. The other budget portion that we will be voting on tonight is the MRVP. Now, you know, the Mass Rental Voucher Program is simply the 25 units that we have at Brownstone. We do not own those units, but we do subsidize those units, and it creates an administrative fee that we receive, and for us it's about $12,000 a year for Lynn to administer it, and we basically prorate portions of our administrative budget, and benefits of all the budget gets prorated against that $12,000. We do have a small operating reserve in the MRVP. We're anticipating our reserve to be at $2,680 at the end of this year, and with this budget of a negative $436, which is basically because we do not we have not got an increase in the MRVP admin fee. We get $40 per unit. It's been $40 per unit for the last 10 years, I think.
Or longer.
I know there's talk at DHCD of increasing it, but it never does get increased. So as long as we do have reserve, we can draw from it, and it would still leave our reserve at 2,244. There is no minimum reserve requirements of the MRVP. That's the budget in an overall viewpoint, not details. If you have any questions, I'd love to talk about it. But those are the key points, which is the bulk of the budget. And it leaves our reserves in good shape and provides for an operating budget that I think could be good for the East Long Meadow housing.
Any further questions for Mr. DePace? If not, I will entertain a motion to accept the budget for 400-1 and for the MRVP.
Make the motion.
I second it.
And what's new in this motion, I just want for purposes of that, is that the DHCD required that the inclusive of that be that you also are voting on the executive director's salary as presented in the budget too, which I know you guys have already voted on once,
Okay.
but I think the motion that's actually to be certified is stating that you're certifying both.
So I'll put that down. So Jim has made the motion, Vinnie's seconded it. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So motion carries 4-0. I will be passing this around to everybody for their signatures. And we do have one board member not here, so when she
She's
comes back,
she'll have to come and sign
come
it.
and sign it. And then get it off to you or back to DHCD.
He'll get it, he'll get it, Lynn will have it, yeah.
All right, Gary. Thank you.
Okay,
Happy
any other
holidays.
questions? Otherwise,
Thank you.
thank you, and you're right, we'll have a big cake when we tar the road.
Are you kidding me? You know, I did everything I could, right? But there's only one thing wrong with the people around here, okay? They live here. They all want somebody else to do something for them, but nobody wants to stick their neck out and do anything for themselves, okay? They keep telling you stuff, but nothing is happening because there's no.
Well, hey, there's a process in
No,
everything.
it's a process,
It's
but
a
the process gets a lot faster for me, because I even gave them a list of people that live there that need the road needs to be done, okay? I went out and got a petition.
Well, good.
But they got the petition the first year, and then the second year, he came back and said that Boston won't give any money for the road. And then the third year, which is this year, they said they were gonna do it, and then they didn't do a damn thing, and then that was it.
Well, hopefully, like I said, keep our fingers crossed.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays,
Happy
Gary.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
All right. Next on the agenda, it's the Corey Hill bid project. So this was a bid in regards to the siding and selective roof that we talked about last month. So Lynn, last month we voted to award the contract to Dicky Matos of $42,000, in which now he wants to withdraw his bid because of the issues with the architect. So therefore, Lynn has requested, Lynn is requesting for us to go to the next person, which would be FRG Contractor Corp. Out of Everett, Mass. In the amount of $49,660, which was the second next bid in line.
Is that guy reputable?
Well,
Was
this
he a
is,
fly by night
this would be
guy?
the same thing. Once we okay this, she gives his name to DHCD, they do all the background checks and everything else.
Did they do the first background check?
Yeah, so the person that was okay, just didn't want to do what the issues with the architect. I can understand that.
He's a roofer and does what? Roofing, right? He was a roofer though, right?
The first guy, yes.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing.
So second is.
I guess they didn't check him out pretty good because they're gonna do the whole siding instead, right?
For the siding, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know how good they check people out.
So I'll entertain a motion to withdraw Dicky Matos and approve the FRG contracting.
I'll make a motion to withdraw the first one and approve the second one. Let's get it going.
That's it.
I'll
Do I-
second.
Any other questions? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes. Opposed? Ayes got it. 4-0. And that is it for today. I would assume the next board meeting will be scheduled for January, which I know I will not be here.
Second Wednesday.
Yeah, second Wednesday in January, so it'll be January 8th, which I know I won't be here. I'll be at a conference, so, I would assume it'll be January 8th, but, you know, unless if something comes up, if Lynn doesn't have anything on the agenda.
That's on Tuesday now?
No, January 8th will be a Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, Wednesday.
We just had the meeting today because of Gary and, because some of us was not gonna be here, on the 11th. So we needed to make sure we have everybody.
So Tuesday, Wednesday the 8th at
Wednes-
4:30.
Correct.
So I'll be available.
If she got quorum, I know I won't be here, but
Okay.
other than that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
January 8th, next Wednesday.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes got it, and it is 5:04 p.m.